Hello, in this video we're going to learn how to insert graphics, figures, references, labels into a LaTeX document. And this is the document that we left off in the previous video. But before we start, I want to tell you about this folder that I created. So I'm in Overleaf, and I'm on my first time LaTeX project. And there's something here, you can click it and enter a new folder, and that's I put images because this is the folder I'm going to store the images in. Then if you click on it, these dots come up on the right side. You can click and then upload. So I uploaded two images. One is a PDF and one is a JPEG, and it's wine cells and log wine cells, and we'll see them as we go. So now I want to create a new section in my document, and I like to add these comments because when your document grows, these are signposts to tell you that that they're here. And so I have another Microsoft Word document that I let ChatGPT help me create, and so I'm going to copy and paste the text into this document just so to save time. Now, section we've talked about, so that just creates the next section and automatically numbers. But I added a label statement, and a label gives this section a name, so we can refer to it in our text, and it will put the correct section number on it, and when I'll show you that in a second. But there is some convention that I think is well worth it, and it's this here, SEC colon, that stands for section because it's a label for a section, and then you add a descriptive label to it, and then I have access to calling it and referencing it. I'm going to control enter and then switch to the PDF. And as a reminder, the layout section is how you determine what you want. And I like this better because it's better text if you're watching it on your phone. And so when I switch, then it inserted the next section. There's nothing over it or under it. And so let's go back. And now what I'm getting ready to insert here is what ChatGPT helped create. Okay, and there's a couple things. So inserting graphics in the LaTeX, straightforward. We need the graphics package, graphic X, and so I'm going to scroll up here. In the preamble, when you fire up an Overleaf text file, it puts it in there for you. But if you're using Text Studio, then you will have to manually add this statement here, use package graphic X, and then it allows us to insert graphics. Okay, well, let me hit Control Enter, and then we'll switch to the PDF. Okay, so inserting graphics in LaTeX, we're going to do what's called the use graphics package. That goes in the preamble, and the workhorse is going to be the command include graphics. But I want to point something out. Notice here that I'm using a LaTeX command within the paragraph. And normally it would not like that. It meaning LaTeX. When you try to control enter, you'd get an error. So what I had to do was, there's a command called verb, and it's a verbatim, I think is what it's short for. And then whatever you put in these pipes, it's called piping. It just puts it exactly, but it keeps it in text mode for your paragraph. Here's another verb, and then in the vertical bars, which they call piping. So in between the piping, it treats it verbatim and like a command. Now there's also a begin verbatim section, and then an end, and then whatever you put in between the begin and end verbatim, then it it creates a section, and this is a nice way to put code and stuff like that um, in your text. So let's go Control Enter and go back to it, and that's what this verbatim allowed me to do. It kind of separates it into its own section, while the slash verb is a way to add the text into a paragraph. Okay, and so this is the workhorse, and so there's a width command, and so I want this image, whatever it's going to be called. Oh, I double clicked it, so it brought me back to the editor. So I got to be careful with that. So whatever, like when I use the command, I'm going to use the names of one of these files. The width is how wide I want it, and so I can go the text width, which is the width of your text area. Of course, if you make the margin smaller, then text width is increased. But we can also do a percent of the text width, like 0.8% of the text width and stuff. The include graphics. Now, you do not need the .jpg or the .pdf or the .png. It will discover it and find it as long as you're pointing it to the right direction. There's a width and height and a scale commands, and if you add another graphics package, you can add a tremendous amount of control to your graphics. You can clip it, you can left just, right justify, center it very easily in this command, but you need another package, so we're not going to do that. Okay, so let me copy, and now you'll notice, not yet of course, but that when you just include a graphics, so I'm going to go Control Enter and then go back to the PDF. It literally just sticks in an image, right? There's no caption, there's no numbering, and sometimes that's what you want, like a pretty graphic, and then you can write text around it, wrap it, your text around it. You can add, stylistic features to your document, but usually you want to number the figure so you can create a table of contents. You want to add a caption, you want to add a label so you can reference it within your document. And so the begin figure is a way to do that. Now the square brackets HT, that means place the figure here or at the top of the document. There's a B for the bottom, and there's other options that you can look at to discover what that means. I want my table centered, so then I include the graphics. Here I'm only going 0.8 times the width, a caption, a label that we can refer it to later in the text. So it's important. Now here's a subtlety. We include the graphics and then the caption. So the caption is under the image, and I'll illustrate both of these in a second. But if we put the caption before we include graphic statement, then the caption is above it. And so some journals, some manuscripts, you put the captions under, some you put it on top of it. And then you reference the figure, you use this label, so it's /ref, and then you use this label, and it puts the label number there. And again, we'll look at that. Now let's go back to the editor, and notice I'm going to leave a gap, so there's a line, and then I'm going to paste my document. And so notice there is a line between these paragraphs, and that's how you start a new paragraph in LaTeX. Okay, it creates a new paragraph. Now notice here I'm using 3 include statements, and it's line cells. It's part of an R package, which it's labeled appropriately. You can see that it's kind of wonky, so then I decrease the width of the angle or the picture, and it looks much better. And then I also just rotate it 90. Sometimes you get an image that's sideways and you have to rotate it, so there's an angle command. And again, these just insert the document. But often we want to number them and have captions, and so none of this will be pretty nice, and you'll see this in a second. So let me switch to it. And if we scroll down, this is the first image. I just said insert it, and there's no, it's wonky, and so it's not very nice. So then I shrink the images to, 0.8 or whatever they were, and then it inserted it, and then I inserted another one, and it's like, oh, there's enough room to put them side by side. So there's really no control, and you can tell that this has been rotated 90, and these are the wine cells from package ITSMR. Okay. But now let's create a figure with automatic numbering and capturing, or with a caption. Let's cut. Let's go back to this and put it here. So I use the begin figure, and I want it here or at the top of a page. I want the figure centered. I'm going to use 0.8 width of my image, and now I'm going to create the log cells, and that's a PDF image, just to show you that we can use the same. Notice the caption is below the include, and then I label it like this. I hit Control Enter, I switch to the PDF, and then this is it. So this is the figure, and notice the caption, which has been automatically numbered, is below this figure. Okay, so let's switch back to the editor. Then cut, and then let's paste. And here we're going to create a figure that again is automatically numbered, but the caption's above the figure. So notice this caption is above the include, so it's going to be in front of it. And since this is the first figure and that's the second figure, it will number it automatically. I hit Control Enter. Now before I do that, there is a way that you can automatically render it, but I like hitting Control Enter. So here's the figure caption below. Now let's create a figure numbering, but the caption's above it. So look, at automatically put number 2, and this is wine cells. It's actually log wine cells of this data set. Okay, so let's go back. Now let's learn how to reference all this. So let me copy and paste. So let's reference the two figures. So here's the subtlety. So look at my label. Notice I have the fig, right? Because you're going to have so many labels in your document. You need to create structure. So FIG is for figures. EQ is for equations. I have sections, so that's SEC for a section. And I called this wine cells. And this has to be a different label or you'll get an error. So I called it 2, log wine cells 2. And this is how you reference it. So you type reference, and then the label, or and then that's what goes there. So since this is the first figure, it'll put the number 1 here. So in figure number 1, in section, and then I call what section it's in. And notice that, and I just put something, notice that log cells is now trend stationary. In the second figure, so I have the second label, which is here, it would be easy to detrend log wine cells time series with a simple linear regression. So let's run this and then switch. So here's the first figure with the caption below it. So that's now let's reference the two figures. In figure 1, that's this one up here, in section 3, notice that the log cells are now trend stationary. In figure 2, it would be easy to detrend the data, so it's referencing this figure. Now, one thing that I don't fully understand, and maybe nobody does, I don't know, is LaTeX has a mind of its own where it places figures. You can try to force it by saying here and top and bottom, and there's options that will make it more likely to appear where you want, but ultimately LaTeX has its own mind of where to do things. Okay, so well, that's a brief introduction on how to insert figures. Oh, I do want to make one more thing. Notice I put the folder, which is images, and then I make the file name. You do not need the .pdf as long as the these are uniquely defined. So if I hit Control Enter, it and this is the second figure, it still inserts it. Okay, well, that's all I have for today. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I sure did.